Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we kick off our second annual Unmanned Aircraft Symposium. I'd also like to thank AUVSI for stepping up and joining with us to put on what I think is going to be a great 2.5 days of discussions, workshops, and I think some very open and frank conversations of where we are, where we're going. It's hard to believe that it's only a year that we were all together in Daytona Beach when many of us were talking about the challenges that we have ahead of us. And it's great to see many of you back here today from so many different industries and so many areas of expertise. You know, as you heard from the Secretary, America is rightly considered to be the gold standard in aviation, and there's a simple reason for it, and that is, as an industry, we compete on a lot of things, but we don't compete on safety. Often in many industries, there's a combative relationship that might exist between the government and the industry that it regulates. But I don't think we have that here. For the FAA, the airlines and the manufacturers, the pilots and the passengers, safety is very much our common goal, our shared principle. In many ways, it's our North Star. And it's not just good business, it is, in fact, the only business. When you look at every important issue that the FAA has tackled over the years, from decreasing the risk of commercial aviation crashes to modernizing our air traffic control system, our success has always depended on forging a close, collaborative relationship with industry. By working together, we've achieved more, and we've done it faster than we ever could on our own. Now we're ushering in a new age of aviation here in America, the unmanned aircraft era. And it's moving at a quicker pace than anything that any of us have seen before. In January of this year, I attended CES in Las Vegas for the second time, and I was struck not only by the creativity that was on display, but how much had changed in the year that I had been there before. If you can dream it, drone manufacturers are building it. Some of the latest models can sense and avoid obstacles in their paths. Others fit in your pocket or can be used underwater. And a few have even automated the selfie game. I understand that the Helicopter Association International has even started a special drone membership category. And many in that industry have even begun looking at ways that drones can augment the tasks that today and in recent years they've done with helicopters, particularly in cases where drones can accomplish a task without putting human lives at risk. Innovations throughout the small unmanned aircraft community have captured the imaginations of many, and I'm sure that's what's inspired many of you to attend this week's symposium. I see quite a few familiar faces, but there are also a lot of new ones, and that's good news for all of us, because as we continue to incorporate drones into our national airspace, it is the people in this room and these organizations that are going to be more important than ever before. I'm going to be leading a panel on the FAA's unmanned aircraft integration efforts in the next few minutes, and we'll be covering what we like to think of as our recent greatest hits, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We finalized a rule that allows people to fly unmanned aircraft for commercial purposes under specific conditions, and we've issued, Brian, it's now more than 37,000 remote pilot certificates to date. We set up an online drone registry that's today received about 770,000 registrations and counting in a little over 15 months. The Before You Fly app, which we created to let people know where it's safe and legal to fly a drone, has been downloaded more than 200,000 times. And our No Drone public education campaign has helped keep events like the inauguration, the Super Bowl, and this week, Washington's Cherry Blossom Festival, it keeps them safe. I'm proud of this record and how quickly we've achieved it, but I'm going to say something that is likely to give many of my FAA colleagues a little bit of heartburn. This was the easy stuff. As we move forward toward integrating unmanned aircraft into our airspace, the questions we need to answer are only getting more and more complicated. We all know there's tremendous interest in expanding operations so that unmanned aircraft can be flown over people and beyond visual line of sight. And it's not hard to see why. Drones can provide a whole new perspective both on our cities and on the most remote areas that we have in the country. But introducing these operations into our airspace also introduces a unique set of challenges. There are the obvious safety questions. What happens to people on the ground if a drone flying overhead fails? Then there are also very valid concerns about security. How can we make sure that unmanned aircraft don't gain access to sensitive sites? And after seeing how drones can be used for ill intent in other parts of the world, how can we ensure that similar incidents don't happen here? Now, these aren't questions that the FAA can or should answer on our own. And all of those greatest hits I mentioned earlier were only possible because of the work we did with all of you, the people in this room. And so as we tackle these new safety and these new security challenges, we're turning to you once again. In the coming weeks, we will be bringing together the industry and national security leadership to address some of these issues. We hope to create a mutual understanding about the government's security concerns and discuss how we can collaborate to address them. So look for more details on this in the near future. We're also launching a new aviation rulemaking committee that is made up of a diverse group of aviation, technology, law enforcement, and safety stakeholders that will help us create standards for remotely identifying and tracking unmanned aircraft during their operations. Now, this is one of the law enforcement community's top concerns, and I hope that the recommendations we will receive will pave the way for expanded drone operations over people and beyond visual line of sight. Now, these initiatives are just the most recent example of how the FAA is working with stakeholders on all aspects of integration. Later today, you'll hear about two other industry-led groups that we formed, and Brian mentioned them, the Drone Advisory Committee and the Unmanned Aircraft Safety Team. This is a very deliberate approach that we're taking, and I see it as having two primary benefits. First, we're providing venues for some of the smartest people in technology and aviation to work together on the issues that all of us care about. And second, it provides us an opportunity to create a shared vision of what it is that we are trying to accomplish and how it is that we're going to get there. Here's the thing with having a seat at the table. It does come with a certain level of responsibility. We all need to have skin in the game and be invested in producing the best possible outcomes for all parties. It's easy to focus on all the bells and whistles that come with unmanned aircraft. The drone is the lightest and the smallest, or this one can fly faster and farther. But this technology can also solve some of the safety and security challenges that we're dealing with. For example, we're already working with industry in order to test tools that can detect unauthorized drone operations near airports and other critical infrastructure. The way I see it, the more problems that industry can solve itself using technology, the better. You're going to do it more quickly and more efficiently than we at the FAA ever could through the regulatory process. It may surprise a few of you to hear me say this, but this is not a new idea at our agency. Late last year, we completely overhauled how we certify small general aviation aircraft. For a long time, the FAA told manufacturers how to build a safe airplane by requiring specific technologies. But as companies came up with new and better ideas, our certification process, well, it struggled to keep up. So we threw out the old rule book. Instead of prescribing technologies and designs, we're now defining the performance objectives we want to achieve. and this lets industry figure out the best and the safest ways to meet them. We want to work with the unmanned aircraft industry in the same way. We know how fast you're churning out new drone designs and new capabilities, and we don't want the bureaucracy to hamper your progress. On the contrary, we want to be supportive of it. When we all work in good faith, and when we all share the same safety goals, we can accomplish some truly impressive things. And so that's what this symposium is all about. It's being hosted by the FAA and AUVSI, but it is not our intention to dominate the conversation. Instead, our goal is to provide a productive framework that allows you to engage with each other and to share ideas about the future of the unmanned aircraft industry here in the United States. Now, we have been calling this work integration of unmanned aircraft into the national airspace system, but another word for integration is inclusion. Each of you has a unique perspective to share, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to share it early and to share it often. We're all going to need to roll up our sleeves because we have a lot of work to do. And when we get this right, we'll know that we have helped define the next great era in aviation, and we will have done it together. So thank you very much for participating in this symposium, and I'm looking forward to some very productive discussions.